Hello and welcome to another episode of the Horrors Den podcast. I appreciate you taking the staircase down with me. And as you can see, this is the first audio and visual episode of the podcast. And not only that, it is also the first episode that will be visible on YouTube podcasts along with Spotify podcasts. So I appreciate everyone who has tuned in for today's episode. We have a pretty fun one and one I've wanted to make for a long time. And I'm very excited because we are talking about none other than the new hit film that's come out recently, Stephen King's The Monkey. Yes, I know this is the Cod Monkey, but this is all I could do. Now, I went to go check out this film around on release on the 21st of February in Ireland, and I went to go see the Odeon Cinema. You can see my ticket just in the bottom corner of the screen. And of course, it was only right that I got my full collection of Stephen King books out. There's 11 books here. You can't see them because they're not all in frame, unfortunately. But Stephen King has been a massive driving force in my life when it comes to in the love of horror and stuff like that. I've read near enough every book he's ever read. I've read The Monkey on multiple occasions. So when it comes to this film, I was so excited to actually watch it, and I gotta say, I think it done the book pretty a lot of justice, to be honest, because this book it's very infamous in King's legacy, in my opinion. I mean, when it comes to the book, it's a wild ride, and the movie is basically the same thing. The only issue I really had with the film in general in comparison to the book, the film was very heavily marketed on some of the posters as like a horror film. For example, there was one quote I saw on a poster that says "scary as hell." This film isn't scary. Neither is the book. It's a wild ride. It's a comedy. So yeah, if you went into this film thinking it was a horror, I feel bad because you definitely hindered your experience, unfortunately. But if you didn't know, this story is in Stephen King's collection of books of Skeleton Crew. To my knowledge, that's along with The Mist and a load of other. I think The Boogeyman is in that collection as well. So it's a pretty, strong book in terms of short stories, and most of them short stories have been turned into pretty good films. I mean, The Boogeyman was excellent, I thought, especially for a PG-13 film, so it was pretty good for that one. But when it comes to the monkey, I thought there was so many elements going for this film. I mean, Osgood Perkins, the director of my favorite film from last year, Longlegs. We have James Wan, who is infamous in the horror genre. I mean, we have Saw, The Conjuring. There's so many more, and also, of course, written on a book by Stephen King. I mean, it was going three for three. Let's be real here. This movie had everything going for it, and I saw a lot of mixed reviews on this one. I mean, there was definitely a lot of people who are complaining about this film being that much more of a comedy. I did see a lot of people say that it was very over the top. I mean, if you saw the trailers, I mean, one of the lines in the trailers was, "The killer monkey that kills our family has come back." If you take that line seriously, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, realistically, I thought this film was excellent. I went to go see it with my girlfriend, and it was a film that she'd never seen before. She'd never heard of the story before, because other than that, I just mentioned to her that I've read the book multiple times. So she came along. She seemed to enjoy it. She thought it was funny, definitely over the top. There's definitely the kills in here. They're to be enjoyed. That's for sure. Another thing is, this film, the story is quite minimal. I mean, the story is, from a story standpoint, pretty mid. I mean, that is me being totally honest, but the book is literally, I think, 70 to 80 pages, if even that. To my knowledge, I'm not 100% sure. But when it comes to the movie, it definitely had a lot of things added onto it. And Osgood Perkins did write this, to my knowledge, obviously with inspiration from the book. So obviously we still have Hal and the twin brothers and stuff like that, and of course the monkey. But one notable change from the film to the book is because of Disney, actually. So in the film, as you can see, the monkey has a little drum that he drums. And I have to say, how they use that is really, really cool, because they give him a whole music number. For example, it starts off with the monkey holding one of its hands up as one of the drumsticks, spin around as kind of like winding up. And then all of a sudden it starts drumming, people start dying. However, in the book, it's actually a symbol monkey. And if you didn't know, as a lot of people have mentioned, obviously with Toy Story 3, with the symbol monkey on the CCTV cameras, Disney actually trademarked that monkey design. So it was impossible legally for this film to have the symbol monkey as their main, antagonist. And to me, I think it worked in their favor. I mean, for me personally, hearing a symbol monkey go off over and over and over again in a theater, I don't know about you. I feel like that would have been way more annoying than the drum, because with a cymbal, it's a really loud crash, and I don't know how that would have been, somewhat pleasant to hear in terms of a musical number when it comes to the Monkey's Drum, because there is a sort of musical number about it. I mean, obviously spoilers for this movie, by the way, if you haven't noticed by now with a podcast, this will have spoilers. So one kill in particular, which has been shown in the trailer, so technically not a spoiler, is obviously when the realtor comes in, opens the door, and the monkey's there banging the drum. And basically, before this person goes and dies, you can see underneath the room that Hal and the realtor are in is obviously the younger son of Hal. And to me, obviously, Petey is his name, by the way. And he's basically rummaging around the house of the auntie and uncle of Hal and his twin brother. And basically, you can hear the monkey drumming. You can hear it before the doors even open because Petey is like looking around, wondering what that sound is, and the monkey is there just drumming in the closet before the closet door is open. And as it opens, the door opens, and the monkey just stares back at them. Drum hits once, the gun falls over, and just explodes the realtor right in front of Hal. Amazing. It's amazing because I don't think there's too much practical effects in that other than the blood and obviously her finger that somehow ends up in Hal's mouth. I don't know how, but you can see her body just kind of disintegrate. I mean, the best example I can compare this and another scene in this film to, for example, the pool scene when the girl is about to jump into the pool, has been electrified. She just explodes. It's amazing. Those two kills, the best the description I can give or comparison I can give for those kills is in Final Destination 2, is when that one character kind of walks, I think it's the son of one of the girls in the film, when he walks kind of out beside a paramedic and a piece of glass falls from the skyscraper and just folds him in half. And you can very much see it's a dummy. You can see it's a dummy that folds in half. So when you see the girl of the realtor getting exploded, you can see her head kind of fold, and then with the girl jumping into the pool, you just see an explosion of body parts, and a leg goes flying a Hal. I mean, personally, I think that's just amazing. But getting onto some of the topics I've written down about this film is obviously the comedy. The comedy for me, it had me chuckling the whole way through. For a lot of people, I did see that it was kind of like a half and half film. Is that the first half is kind of similar to the first 1990 miniseries of It, with not like 40 minutes being the kids, and then the last like 45 minutes being the older versions of Hal. But to me, I think the actor's name was Christian Convery. Was the young Hal and other twin brother. I thought he was excellent. I thought they were so good in the role of like the dual twin thing. And when you know this story, the comedy in this is excellent. It really is. I mean, between the dynamic between these two kids, the fact of one of them being the bully older brother because he came out like 10 or 15 seconds beforehand, and the narration by Theo James like saying that like his brother would always like bully him just because of that, and he would always let him know that he's the older brother. I love that because for me, when you actually experience the if you have siblings, you can experience that in real life. The whole like, oh, I'm the older brother, you listen to me. I'm the older sibling, older sister, whatever it might be, and you can kind of like experience that as well. So if you have siblings, you might relate to that. I mean, I certainly did as the older sibling. I mean, it's always, that sort of I'm the older brother, that sort of thing. Definitely not to an extreme level of this film now, of course. But when it comes to this film, when the monkey comes into it, for example, if you didn't know what happens, the opening of this scene is basically the dad of Hal coming into like an antique store, and basically the monkey sits down on a desk. He rings the bell. However, the monkey starts drumming. And when the owner or shopkeeper of this shop strolls out, it's kind of looking at this monkey drumming, and it's kind of confusing. But obviously, we and the audience, and obviously Hal's dad, know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen. As the monkey drums, we see this kind of Final Destination vibe kill, as like there's some mouse running across the antique store, and basically what happens is, I think the mouse chews on this rope, and the rope then swings into this like antique like swimwear suit or something like that, and a harpoon gun goes straight through the shopkeeper's stomach. And in the trailer, it makes it very much seem like it's going to go through his head. It doesn't. Instead, the harpoon gun latches on the wall and returns back to its gun with the character's intestines all wrapped across. And I didn't expect that at all. And it was an amazing way to kick off the film because you realize from that scene alone, you're in for a comedy. because as soon as that ends, it cuts to the monkey being burned with a flamethrower by Hal's dad, and then you get title card. It's amazing. It's perfection. It's such a funny opening as well, and I love it. I mean, when it comes to the comedy as well, the comedy is so forwarded and like progressed because of the film's editing. And what I mean by that is the editing of this film has such quick cuts. For example, Christian Convery as one of the younger brothers, he will like about to say what the f, and it will cut away just as he's about to swear, and it will go to a different scene. And those quick edits really just remind me of like those TikToks you'd see where it's like perfectly cut moments. They always crack me up. So when I saw this film was gonna have a lot of that, I knew it was game over for me laughing in the theater because when those moments happened, they cracked me up so much. Um, the best one I can think of is when Chip, Uncle Chip, who was actually played by Osgood Perkins, dies. For example, they throw the monkey away. I think I'm not actually exactly sure, but what happens is the monkey drums, and they're praying that no one in their family gets hurt by it. And as soon as they say that, it cuts straight to the funeral of Chip. Like you just see the casket and Osgood Perkins' character's face, and you're just there laughing like, oh my god, they got Uncle Chip all of a sudden. You know, Uncle Chip got, and it's really sad because Uncle Chip is by far the best character in the whole film, obviously. Um, but basically, the way it cuts away and shows what actually happened to him, it's so funny because they outright say he got trampled by like 67 horses on a field trip. And you're just kind of sitting there like 67 horses trampled him. And they also state that like in the autopsy, and it shows just like a load of minced meat, and it basically shows that they could barely identify him because of how bad it was. It's in the trailer as well. Like for me in general, I just think it's excellent. It's such a funny description, and the way it's narrated as well, it's just so funny. And speaking of the narration, Theo James is the lead role in this film. Him and Christian Convery, they are rivaled in terms of the twin brother aspect because in my opinion, Christian Convery is actually the better version of Hal in this movie. Because when you watch Christian Convery play as Hal and also the twin brother as well, in my opinion, he does the evil version and, innocent version much better. I think he does it much better. But however, Theo James, I think it's just because of the material given to him as the how like the older brother, becomes this evil side of him. It's very much a weird turn of events because when you see him, of course, spoilers, when you see Hal all grown up, he's obviously traumatized by what happened, and he purposely goes away from his own son to make sure the monkey does not latch to him. However, of course, by the end, it still does. But what happens is basically, in terms of the older brother, he has this whole mission to go and kill Hal, just because Hal was at fault for their mother dying when they were younger. By like a brain bleed, I think it was, because of the monkey, of course. And basically, that's the whole story of why the monkey's still going. Is because the older twin brother is making the drum go and go and go to try and make sure that gets Hal instead of anyone else. However, the whole mission is to try to get Petey to turn the key in order for obviously in hopes that if Petey turns it, then it will definitely get Hal. However, by the end of this film, if you've seen it, you'll know what ends up happening when Petey eventually turns the key, which I'll get onto in a little bit. But basically, the whole vibe of the older brother in this evil tone, I mean, he still wears the suit that he wore at his mum's funeral, and it like only fits him like a crop top. To me, a little excessive with the whole comedic factor, in my opinion. I mean, in general, I still think this is an amazing character. I love this character a lot, but I just think that that was a little bit too much. It's very funny and cringy. When you first see it, it's like, oh my god, he's still wearing the suit, ha 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 ha. But when you actually see him, he's continuously wearing it. So it's still a bit weird. So for me, that's a little bit strange, but I'll get onto that in a minute. Um, but when it comes to the practical effects, of course, that I mentioned, I think there's only one thing you can talk about specifically, and that's the actual design of the monkey. When you see this monkey doll, it's really creepy. I mean, the wide smile, the beaming eyes, the bead eyes in the middle. I think it's really creepy, and it definitely brings that sort of like, oh, I don't like looking at that. And because of the way Osgood shoots his films, I mean, you saw it in Longlegs, specifically with the shot of Longlegs at the bus stop before he gets taken in for questioning. When you see that kind of like really close up shot, but it almost looks like a .5 camera on an iPhone, where it's kind of like you can see majority of the face covers the screen, but it's almost like everything else is kind of like illuminated. And you get that shot, especially in the opening of the film with the monkey in the antique store, is that the monkey's face takes up a majority of the screen. However, everything else kind of like is magnified around it, so it basically focuses on the monkey a lot. And when that's basically just staring back at you on a cinema screen, I think that's really uneasy, regardless of the tone of the film, with it being funny and stuff. I do think the fact of how creepy the monkey actually looks is a really good effect, because I can definitely see that film creeping out with the design of everything. I can definitely see that creeping out a lot of people. I mean, my girlfriend was definitely a little bit creeped out by it. So when it comes to that, I can definitely see why it would make people creeped out, because it makes sense. I mean, some people are just kind of scared of inanimate objects. I mean, when you see Chucky and stuff like that, even just the look of Chucky can scare some people. So it makes sense why this would also scare people. But for me, just the design of the monkey was incredible. I would kill to have this popcorn bucket, by the way. The popcorn bucket for this film is insane. It has to be the best popcorn bucket of the year already. Please, I need this. I don't care how much I have to pay. Please. I'm in Ireland. We don't have AMC theaters here. Please, AMC. I would kill for this popcorn bucket. I would kill for it. Um, but I gotta say, another actor I actually completely forgot was in this film. Was Tatiana Maslany. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I'm pretty sure she's She-Hulk. I think. Do not quote me. I'm pretty sure that's She-Hulk. She plays the mother Lois in this film. She's really good because she gives this monologue after the death of the babysitter in this film, and she basically gives the tagline of the film that everybody dies, and but basically, to quote her scene, she basically says that everybody dies. You'll die, I'll die, you'll also die. Obviously, speaking to the two twins. But then she'll say, some of us might go peacefully. However, some of us might go in violent, vicious, cruel, painful, horrific ways. Like, really emphasizing how painful some people can die from. And obviously, that's a hint for what's going to go down in the film, of course. I mean, because there literally is every sort of death. There's an explosion, decapitation, um, debelment, if that's how you pronounce that. Like, there's people who are getting electrocuted, there's people who are getting trampled on, there's people who are getting stabbed, there's people who are getting blown up. Like, there's definitely so many different aspects of scenes with different kills. And I think this is a really creative way of basically, giving a little nod to the audience of, oh, yeah, this is what you're in for. This is what the kills are going to be in this film. And for me, there was a few kills in this film that kind of reminded me how I would really like to see them in a full scene, because there's a certain aspect of this film where it shows people who are being killed by the monkey in quick successions. For example, there's one of someone accidentally like burning half their face off, and it kind of turns them into Two Face. It kind of reminded me of Terrifier 3 with the liquid nitrogen. I think it was. I think that's what he used. Was that what Art used? I don't remember. Please, someone remind me. With the Santa Claus kill, if that's any help. It really reminded me of that. But my favorite kill out of these like three or four was there's this dude who's doing his gardening, and it just cuts to him with the lawnmower on his face, and it's just cutting away, and there's blood being spurted onto his next door neighbor. And his next door neighbor's kind of looking at it and just sipping at his beer while blood is consistently going splatter on his face. To me, that was comedic genius, because it just snaps away as it's kind of like a bit strange. Because if that was a full scene, you'd be kind of wondering, like, why is he standing there? It's kind of cringy. But because it's a quick succession kill, it really works. And I really, really like that kill. I would have been intrigued to see what it actually would have like looked like with the full thing, how gruesome that kill probably was. But obviously, budgeting reasons, I'm assuming, because this film was made on around 10 mil, I think, roughly. Um, it's definitely made that back in its opening weekend, by the way. But I also just think that there is some issues with this film. I mean, a lot of people that I've seen personally, as I mentioned before, is the fact of how this film feels like it's two separate films in one. And a lot of people had that issue with Long Legs as well, which I can understand more with Long Legs than I can with The Monkey. Because in Long Legs, of course, you kind of have the first half of the film being a sort of like a serial killer, all that sort of vibes. However, in the second half, you obviously have Longlegs dying, and you're kind of wondering, oh my god, there was an accomplice, and it's kind of figuring out what happened there, and it kind of goes to more religious horror. But in the monkey, for me, it's kind of like, okay, you have half as the kid, half as Theo James, And I can understand why people think it's two separate films, because the first half is very much show everything the monkey can do in horrific ways, but also show some elements of this what can happen when you play with this toy. It can take out your family, it can ruin your family, which it very much does. But the second half is more of like the monkey is back all of a sudden. Who is using it? Who is using this monkey? And obviously, the older brother, the evil brother, is kind of dropping little hints, basically, basically trying to hint to the audience of like where the monkey is and stuff like that. So much so that he hides under the name Mrs. Monkey. Very, very subtle, of course. But for me, just in general, I could definitely see why that plot point is very intriguing to people and kind of uninteresting. That all along it was the older brother trying to kill his younger brother with the monkey. And the main reason why I think a lot of people, are annoyed with that is because of how this film wraps up. And to me, I can understand it, but I also kind of enjoyed the kind of humor vibe of it. But basically, as they were kids, the older brother had the sort of thing where every time they shook hands, he would kind of like do that thing with his hair, like basically pull his hand away, like loads of little kids do all the time. Towards the end of this film, it basically Petey and Hal go to the kind of bunker, well, not a bunker, kind of like an apartment that the older brother has like basically devoted his life to the monkey here, and they go in and they confront him, and Petey ends up turning the key before Hal arrives. And what ends up happening is nothing ends up happening in hopes that the older brother would have hoped that obviously Hal would die. Instead, it ends up killing Corey Cunningham's actor from Halloween Ends, as he pretends to be a police officer because he wants to use the monkey. Kind of a really irrelevant character, but his death is hilarious. Basically, what happens is I'm just going to call him Corey Cunningham. I really don't like Halloween Ends, by the way. Just thought I'd throw that out there. But basically, what happens is he has a gun impersonating a police officer. He ends up shooting the windshield of the car him and Hal are in because he takes him hostage, trying to get the monkey, of course. And what ends up happening is, instead, when the monkey drums, it turns out the bullet that he put through the windshield goes into a beehive or a hornet's hive, something like that. And when the monkey drums, the hornets rush out of the hive to go straight through the glass of the windshield and into Corey Cunningham's mouth. An absolutely vicious kill, by the way. I thought it was low key one of my favorite kills, I think, because what ends up happening is like the hornets start like creeping out of his skin because they're obviously bursting through because there's so many of them. It's in the trailer, of course. Just don't watch horror movie trailers anymore. Every kill is in there, especially Sinners. Oh, that's a whole nother podcast. But basically, when it comes to that, it's very very interesting in the fact that when you see that kill, it's like so creepy, and that's what obviously intrigues Hal to go into the building to go, oh my god, PD turned the key. And so what ends up happening is the older evil brother ends up trying to basically like shout at the monkey and like throws it away. This is when the monkey kind of goes on its own 2 feet and it starts drumming and drumming at a really quick pace. And this is where I think a lot of people got lost because all of a sudden a plane starts crashing outside. People are dying all over the roads. People are falling through the ceiling of the building Hal, Petey, and the older brother are in. And you can definitely see that they're just probably falling out of the sky. And I'm assuming they fell out of the plane, but how it looks is that they just fell out of the sky. And that's why I can see a lot of people going, oh, they're just killing people for the sake of the body count. I can kind of see that, but I also think it's really, really funny. And then I eventually decide that let's not turn the key anymore. Let's just leave it as is. And basically, Petey and his obviously Hal and the older brother, the whole vibe is to try and make up the two brothers. And the reason they, make up and don't obviously want to kill each other anymore, well, specifically want to kill Hal, is because Hal goes, she was my mother too. As obviously the whole motive of the older brother is to kill Hal because he killed the mother. But the line of she was my mother too kind of cops, the older brother onto everything going, oh, I didn't think of that. And then they obviously make up, they're like brothers again, whatever. To me, that's a really weak, connection again. But it's obviously turning that kind of sick humor into like the ending or whatever. But basically, how that ends up ending is instead of like helping him up off the ground, Hal obviously puts his hand out to grab his hand to shake on it, and the brother does that thing again that he did when he was a kid, but he does it like 4 times, I think. And after the third time, you're kind of wondering, okay, like we get it. So that's why, to me, I was kind of like, okay, it's a little bit cheesy. However, you then realize that the older brother had set up this bunker as this big, defense system, like Final Destination booby traps, like the Goonies as well, like swords and stuff flying if you like tripped over a wire. However, he ends up, because the monkey's key was turned, there was a bowling ball that was meant to obviously probably be for Hal, and a bowling ball gets shot straight at one of them, and you just see the older brother's head get absolutely obliterated by this bowling ball and get stuck in the wall, and you can see the brother's face, like the ears are popping out of the bowling ball. And the bowling ball ends up reading Lois, which is the mother's name. And the whole thing is that, oh, at the end of it, the older brother dies by the monkey. And then the kind of film kind of turns off a little bit and calms down a little bit as Hal and Petey take the monkey and drive away. However, it's kind of like leaving, like you're seeing the aftermath of the monkey's fast paced drumming. And you see everything like dying. You see a pram on fire. You see someone who's been split in half by a surfboard. Loads of crazy, crazy kills. And it kind of ends with this kind of ghost figure on a horse beside Hal and Petey in the car. And I won't lie, I didn't know who this was. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really recognize him, whoever it was. My guess is that's probably like the grandmother, maybe. I don't know, or maybe a grandfather. I'm not. I'm honestly, I probably have to see the movie again and focus up on that scene. Um, but when it comes to that scene specifically, it's kind of like the ending shot, and you see like a school bus of like cheerleaders, and the ending shot is all them out the window cheering while a train goes straight past and cuts all of their heads off, and the movie ends. Peak, peak ending, in my opinion. Um, but in general, I thought the monkey was really, really fun. I mean, I gave it a 4 stars on Letterboxd. If you don't know what my Letterbox is, it's the same as this. It's that horror dude. So if you want to go check out my Letterbox, do check that out. But yeah, I gave it a 4 star just because how much I enjoyed it. I know 4 might seem a lot higher for people on Letterbox. I don't know, but for me, I enjoyed it. But personally, I just really enjoyed the monkey. I mean, it was fun. Theo James was good. Direction was good. The comedy was good. The gore was good. All round I thought this was excellent. I thought the marketing as well was quite funny, which seems to be the case for a lot of Osgood Perkins' projects, especially with Longlegs. Um, I can definitely see why people would have issues with it, because if you didn't find this movie funny, you were clocked out. This movie was not going to be for you, unfortunately, which is a little bit annoying. I can understand that, but when it comes to this film, there's definitely some elements that will appease to pretty much everybody when it comes to comedy, but there also will be a lot of elements where, like, if you don't understand it or you don't like that comedy, it's simply just not going to be for you, which is really unfortunate. And that is why this film is getting a lot of, so called hate by a lot of people. But in my opinion, I really loved it. I adore most Stephen King adaptations, so it's, except for Pet Cemetery and Children of the Corn, they're the two off the top of my head I can hate. By the way, Pet Cemetery, the remake, not the original. I love the original, but when it comes to Stephen King adaptations, they are excellent all the time, in my opinion. So when it comes to this one, I'm really happy with it because I've read the book so many times. It did the book justice, in my opinion, or short story, whatever you want to call it. But overall, that is my personal opinion on the monkey. That's why I thought it was really, really fun. Overall, if you want to quote in my letterbox, this movie does go bananas. The pun is fully intended. But thank you all so much for tuning into this little episode of the Horrors Den podcast. I have been working behind the scenes a lot on this podcast to kind of get it back up and running, because I used to do this a lot of the time last year, but I kind of, lost track of a lot of things and, exams with school and stuff. So I really do hope you enjoy this podcast. It's all to do with horror films. We'll obviously, my goal is to have some horror directors, some horror actors on here as well. So I really do appreciate it if you could give this podcast a rating, or if you're of course watching on YouTube, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a like and subscribe down below. And of course, let me know what you thought of the monkey. If you are watching this on YouTube and you're watching this and you want to comment, do let me know what you thought of the monkey. I'd be really intrigued what you think. And also, let me know some other movies you want to see me do a podcast on. I am going to be doing Companion and also Heart Eyes. I'll be doing them too. They'll be coming sometime in the next week. I'm really excited to talk about them films as well, because I got a lot to talk about. I'm sincerely, no pun intended, waiting for Sinners. I'm waiting for that film a lot. That comes out in, I think, April. I think so. I'm looking forward to that that one. But that is my opinion on the monkey. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and of course taking the trip down the stairs to the horrors down with me. I really do appreciate it. But thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll check you in the next episode. And of course, thank you for coming down to the horrors den.